हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा। प्रणाम प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्णा
हरे
गीता जी।
कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे हरे
मंगलाचरण।
हरे हरे
ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमः विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll continue with our prayer. Shri Govinda Damodar Stotram, verses by Shri Bilamangal Thakur, verses 41 to 50 is what we have been reciting this week. I've posted the link in the chat. Share the screen. Anybody would like to sing today?
I can try, probably.
Yes, Amrish Prabhu, please go ahead.
For you. अत्यन्तिकव्याधिहरं जनानां चिकित्सं वेदाविदो वदन्ति संसारतापत्रयनाशबीजं गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति ततज्ञानया गच्छति रामचन्द्रे सा लक्ष्मणेरन्य छाये ससीते चक्रन्दरामस्य निजजनित्री गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति एकाकिनी दण्डकः कानन्तात् सानीयमान दशकन्धरेण सीता तदग्रो सदनन्यनाथ गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति रामाद्वियुक्ता जनकात्माजसा विचिन्तयन्ति हृदि रामरूपं रुरोदसीता रघुनाथ पाहि गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति प्रसीद विष्णु रघुवंशनाथ सुरासुरानं सुखदुःखहेतो रुरोदसीता तु समुद्रमध्ये गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति अन्तर्जले गृहीता पादौ विसृत विक्लिस्तसमस्तबन्धु तदा गजेन्द्रो नित्यं जगाद गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति हंसाध्वज वाजः शङ्खो युतो ददर्श पुत्रं कताहे पपर्तन् इनामं पुण्यानि नामानि हरे जपन्तं गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति दुर्वाससो वाक्यमुपेत्य कृष्ण सा च व्रति सा च प्रवृत्ति काननवसिनी साम अन्तः प्रविष्टं मनसा जुहाव गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति ध्येय सदा योगिभिर्वपर्म्या चिन्ताहरश्चिन्तितपरिजातः कस्तूरिकाकल्पितनीलवर्णो गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति संसारे कूपे पतितो त्यगाधे मोहन्दपूर्णे विषयविताप्ते करवालम्बं मम देहि विष्णु गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Amrish Prabhu. Yes, anybody would like to read the translations?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please. Yes, Mataji.
The knowers of the Vedas say that this is the cure-all of the worst diseases of mankind, and that this is the seed of the destruction of the threefold miseries of material existence, Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. Upon Ramchandra's going into the forest due to his father's order, along with Lakshmana and Sita, his mother cried, O Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. Left there alone, Sita was carried out of the forest by the 10-headed Ravana. At that time, accepting no other lord, Sita cried, O Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. Separated from Rama, the daughter of King Janaka was completely anxious, and with the form of Rama within her heart, she cried, O Raghunatha, protect me, O Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. O Lord Vishnu, be gracious, Lord of the Raghu clan, cause of the happiness and distress of gods and demons alike. O Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. Thus Sita cried as she was being carried over the middle of the ocean. Caught by his foot and pulled into the water, Gajendra, his friends, and all harassed and frightened away, then called out incessantly, Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. Along with his priest Shankyuta, King Hamsadhwaja saw his son Sudhanava falling into a vat, but the boy was chanting the transcendental names of the Hari, Govinda, Damodara, and Madhva. Accepting Durvasa Muni's request that she feed his many disciples, though she hadn't the means, Draupadi mentally called out to the Lord from within her heart, the Lord of the forest dwellers. She said, Govinda, Damodara, Madhva. He is always meditated upon by the yogis as being inscrutable. He is the remover of all anxieties and is the desired tree of all that is desired. His bluish complexion is as attractive as Kasturika, Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. I am fallen into the deep dark well of material life, which is full of illusion and blind ignorance, and I am tormented by sensual existence. O my Lord, Vishnu, Govinda, Damodara, Madhva, please grant me your supporting hand to uplift me. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna. Thank you. Thank you, Mataji and Amrish Prabhu. Shri Govinda Damodar Stotram ki jai, Shri Bilamangal Thakur ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, so when you pray, please grant me your supporting hand to uplift me. Krishna bestows his mercy and he sends his pure devotees, right? Just like Shri Prabhupada came and he uplifted everyone, including us, all of us, third generation after he left. So that is the power. That is how the Lord is merciful. Sometimes he comes himself, sometimes he sends his pure devotees to uplift all the fallen souls, conditioned souls, and bring them back to Godhead. Okay, so with that, we'll continue Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit. We are currently reading from chapter 22. Srila Prabhupada is in San Francisco. He's uplifting one city at a time. So he was in New York, now he's in San Francisco. We can only uplift one soul at a time, starting with ourselves. That should be our goal. We have to first start with ourselves. If we have to preach, if we have to do anything, we have to preach to our mind first. But yes, the powerful representatives of the Lord, they can uplift, multiple souls, multiple cities at a time. But yes, Prabhupada is starting now in California, and we saw how he performed the kirtan, and now he's lovingly teaching his new disciples everything from learning cooking to starting a new temple in California, San Francisco, and also teaching them Mridanga, so Mukunda Prabhu and Janaki Mataji. They have now gathered a few of their friends and they are starting to exercise the process of bhakti in San Francisco. So we'll continue reading. Yesterday we stopped up to this paragraph where Janaki Mataji had a dream and they were all chanting Hare Krishna in the dream, and Prabhupada said, "Oh, that's such a lovely dream." So yeah, we'll continue from here. Bonnie McDonald. Anybody would like to read today? Not, I'll continue. Okay. Bonnie McDonald, age 19, and her boyfriend, Gary McElroy, 20, had both come to San Francisco from Austin, where they had been living together as students at the University of Texas. Bonnie was a slight, fair blonde with a sweet southern drawl. She was born and raised in Southeast Texas in a Baptist family. In high school, she had become agnostic, but later, while traveling in Europe and studying the religious art there and the architecture of the great cathedrals, she had concluded that these great artists couldn't have been completely wrong. Gary, the son of a US Air Force officer, had been raised in Germany, Okinawa, and other places around the world before his family had settled in Texas. His dark hair and bushy brows gave him a scowling look, except when he smiled. He was one of the first students at the University of Texas to wear long hair and experiment with psychedelic drugs. While taking LSD together, he and Bonnie had become obsessed with the idea of going on a spiritual search, and without notifying their parents or school, they had driven to the West Coast in search of someone who could teach us about spiritual life. They had spent a few frustrating months searching through spiritual books and amongst spiritual groups in Haight-Ashbury. They had become vegetarians. Gary had started teaching himself to play electric guitar, while Bonnie had gone to Golden Gate Park every day to perform a self-styled Hatha Yoga meditation. But gradually they had become disillusioned and had felt themselves becoming degraded from drugs. When the disciple is ready, the guru will appear, they had read, and they had waited eagerly for the day when their guru would come. Although Bonnie had spent most of her time in the parks of San Francisco, one day she had been looking through a tableful of magazines in a Haight-Ashbury head shop when she had found a copy of Back to Godhead, the mimeographed journal produced by Srila Prabhupada's disciples in New York. She had been particularly attracted to Hayagreev's article about Swamiji. The descriptions of Swamiji's smile, his bright eyes, his pointy-toed shoes, and the things he said had given her a feeling that this might be the guru she had been looking for. And when she had learned that this time Swamiji had opened an ashrama in Haight-Ashbury, she had immediately started searching through the neighborhood until she had found the temple on Frederick Street. Before Bonnie and Gary met Swamiji, they had both been troubled. Gary was in anxiety about the threat of being drafted into the army, and both of them were disillusioned because they had not found the truth they had come to San Francisco to find. So, on meeting Srila Prabhupada in his room, they began to explain their situation. Bonnie. He was sitting in a rocking chair in his little apartment, and he looked at us like we were crazy because we were, and he said, "You come to my classes. Simply come to my classes every morning and every evening, and everything will be all right." That sounded to us like an unbelievable panacea because we were so bewildered, we agreed to it. I told him I had traveled all over Europe, and he said, "Oh, you have traveled so much?" And I said to him, "Yes, I have traveled so much. I have done so many things, but none of it ever made me happy." He was pleased with that statement. He said, "Yes, that is the problem." He began going to his morning lectures. For us, it was a long distance to get there at 7 in the morning, but we did it every morning with the conviction that this was what we had said to do, and we were going to do it. Then one day he asked us, "What do you do?" When we said that formerly we had been art students at college, he told us to paint pictures of Krishna. Shortly after that, we asked to be initiated. Joanne and Roger were soon initiated, receiving the names Yamuna and Gurudas. And the very next day, they were married. At their wedding ceremony, Swamiji presided, wearing a bulky garland of leaves and rhododendron flowers. He sat on a cushion on the temple floor, surrounded by his followers and paraphernalia for the sacrificial fire. Before him was the small mound of earth where he would later build the fire. He explained the meaning of Krishna conscious marriage and how husband and wife should assist one another and serve Krishna, keeping him in the center. Swamiji had commented that he did not like the Western women's dress, and at his request, Yamuna was dressed in a sari. Although Swamiji had called for ghee, clarified butter, as one of the sacrificial ingredients, the devotees, thinking ghee too costly, had substituted melted margarine. He had called for firewood also, and the devotees had supplied him the bits of a broken orange crate. Now, with Yamuna and Gurudas seated before him on the opposite side of the mound of the earth, he picked up a small piece of the splintered orange crate, dipped it into what it was supposed to be ghee, and held it in the candle flame to begin the fire. The splinter flamed, sputtered, and went out. He picked up another splinter and moistened it in melted margarine, but when he touched it to the flame, it made the same swit swit sound and sputtered out. After trying unsuccessfully 4 or 5 times, Swamiji looked up and said, "This marriage will have a very slow start." Yamuna began to cry. Bonnie and Gary were initiated just 2 weeks after they had met Swamiji. Bonnie's initiated name was Govinda Dasi, and Gary's was Gaurasundara. Although still dressed in blue jeans, even at their initiation, and not professing to know much of what was going on, they had confidence in Swamiji. They knew that their minds were still hazy from drugs, but they took their initiation seriously and became strict followers. Gaurasundara threw out whatever marijuana he had, and he and Govinda Dasi began eating only food they had offered to Lord Krishna. 2 weeks after their initiation, Swamiji conducted their marriage ceremony. On the evening of the wedding, Govinda Dasi's father came from Texas, even though he objected to Krishna consciousness as radically un-American. Walking up to Srila Prabhupada's seat in the temple, Govinda Dasi's father asked, "Why do you have to change my daughter's name? Why does she have to have an Indian name?" Prabhupada looked at him and then, with a mischievous gleam, looked at Mr. Patel, an Indian guest standing nearby with his family. "You don't like Indians?" he asked. Everyone who heard Swamiji laughed, except for Govinda Dasi's father, who replied, "Well, yeah, they are all right, but why does Bonnie have to have a different name?" "Because she has asked me to give her one," Srila Prabhupada replied. "If you love her, you will like what she likes. Your daughter is happy. Why do you object?" The discussion ended there, and Govinda Dasi's father remained civil. Later, he enjoyed taking prasadam with his daughter and son-in-law, Govinda Dasi. Gaurasundar and I set about reading the 3 volumes of Swamiji's Srimad Bhagavatam, and at the same time, Swamiji had told me to paint a large canvas of Radha and Krishna and a cow. So every day, for the whole day, I would paint, and Gaurasundara would read out aloud from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1 volume after another. We did this continuously for 2 months. During this time, Swamiji also asked me to do a portrait of him standing before a background painting of Lord Chaitanya dancing. Swamiji wanted it so that Lord Chaitanya's foot would be touching his head. I tried. It was a pretty horrible painting, and yet he was happy with it. Prabhupada's thoughtful followers felt that some of the candidates for initiation did not intend to fulfill the exclusive, lifelong commitment a disciple owes to his guru. "Swamiji," they would say, "some of these people come only for their initiation. We have never seen them before, and we never see them again." Srila Prabhupada replied that that was the risk he had to take. One day, in a lecture in the temple, he explained that although the reactions for a disciple's past sins are removed at initiation, the spiritual master remains responsible until the disciple is delivered from the material world. Therefore, he said, Lord Chaitanya warned that a guru should not accept many disciples. One night in the temple during the question and answer session, a big bearded fellow raised his hand and asked Prabhupada, "Can I become initiated?" The brash public request annoyed some of Prabhupada's followers, but Prabhupada was serene. "Yes," he replied, "but first you must answer 2 questions. Who is Krishna?" The boy thought for a moment and said, "Krishna is God." "Yes," Prabhupada replied. "And who are you?" Again, the boy thought for a few moments and then replied, "I am the servant of God." "Very good," Prabhupada said. "Yes, you can be initiated tomorrow." Srila Prabhupada knew that it would be difficult for his Western disciples to stick to Krishna consciousness and attain the goal of pure devotional service. All their lives, they had had the worst of training, and despite their nominal Christianity and philosophical searching, most of them knew nothing of the science of God. They did not even know that illicit sex and meat eating were wrong, although when he told them, they accepted what he said, and they freely chanted Hare Krishna. So how could he refuse them? Of course, whether they would be able to persevere in Krishna consciousness despite the ever-present attractions of Maya would be seen in time. Some would fall, that was the human tendency, but some would not. At least those who sincerely followed his instructions to chant Hare Krishna and avoid sinful activities would be successful. He gave the example that a person could say that today's fresh food, if not properly used, would spoil in a few days. But if it is fresh now, to say that in the future it will be misused and therefore spoil is only a surmise. Yes, in the future anyone could fall down, but Prabhupada took it as his responsibility to engage his disciples now. And he was giving them the methods which, if followed, would protect them from ever falling down. Aside from Vedic standards, even by the standard of Swamiji's New York disciples, the devotees in San Francisco were not very strict. Some continued going to the donut shop, eating food without offering it to Krishna, and eating forbidden things like chocolate and commercial ice cream. Some even indulged in after kirtan cigarette breaks right outside the temple door. Some got initiated without knowing precisely what they had agreed to practice. Kirtanananda. The mood in San Francisco was a lot more relaxed. The devotees liked to go to the corner and have their coffee and donuts. But Prabhupada loved the way so many people were coming, and he loved the program at the Avalon Ballroom. But there were two sides: those who strictly followed the rules and regulations and emphasized purity, and then those who were not so concerned about strictness, but who wanted to spread Krishna consciousness as widely as possible. Swamiji was so great that he embraced both groups. Michael Wright, 21, had recently gotten out of the Marine Corps, and Nancy Grindle, 18, was fresh out of high school. They had met in college in Los Angeles. Feeling frustrated and in need of something tangible to which to dedicate their lives, they had come to San Francisco to join the hippies. But they soon realized that they and the Haight-Ashbury hippies, whom they found dirty, aimless, unproductive, and lost in their search for identity, had little in common. So Nancy took a job as a secretary for the telephone company, and Michael found work as a lineman for the electric company. Then they heard about the Swami in Haight-Ashbury and decided to visit the temple. It was an evening kirtan, and the irresponsible hippies were twirling, twisting, and wiggling. Michael and Nancy took a seat on the floor, off to one side, impressed more by the presence of the Swami than by the kirtan. After the kirtan, Prabhupada lectured, but they found his accent heavy. They wanted to understand. They had an innate feeling that he was saying something valuable, and yet the secret seemed locked behind a thick accent and within a book written in another language. They decided to come back in the morning and try again. At the morning program, they found a smaller group, a dozen devotees with beads for chanting draped around their necks, a few street people. The kirtan seemed sweeter and more mellow, and Michael and Nancy chanted and danced along with the devotees. Then Prabhupada spoke, and this time they caught a few of his ideas. They stayed for breakfast and became friends with Mukunda and Janaki, Sam and Marjorie, now Shyamasundar and Malati, Yamuna and Gurudas, and Govindadasi and Gaurasundar. They liked the devotees and promised to come again that evening. Soon they were regularly attending the morning and evening programs, and Nancy, along with the other women, was attending Prabhupada's weekend cooking classes. Michael was open to Prabhupada's ideas, but he had difficulty accepting the necessity of surrendering to a spiritual authority. His tendency was to reject authorities, but the more he thought about it, the more he saw that Prabhupada was right. He had to accept an authority. He reasoned, every time I stop at a red light, I'm accepting an authority. And finally, he concluded that to progress in spiritual understanding, he would have to accept a spiritual authority. Yet, because he didn't want to accept it, he was in a dilemma. Finally, after hearing Prabhupada's lectures for 2 weeks, Michael decided to surrender to Prabhupada's authority and try to become Krishna conscious. Michael, Nancy and I decided to get married and become Swamiji's disciple and members of a society. We told some of the devotees we would like to see Swamiji. They said, yes, just go up. He's on the 3rd floor. We were a little surprised that there were no formalities required, and when we got to the door, his servant Ranchor let us in. We went in with our shoes on, so Ranchor had to ask us to take them off. I didn't know exactly what to say to Swamiji. I was depending on my future wife to make the initial opening. But then I finally said, we came because we would like to become members of your Krishna Conscious Society. He said, this was very nice. Then I said that actually the main reason we were there was that we wanted to be married. We knew that he performed marriage ceremonies and that it was part of society's requirements that couples had to be duly married before they could live together. Swamiji asked me if I liked the philosophy and if I had a job. My answer to both questions was yes. He explained that first of all, we would have to be initiated, and then we could be married the next month. At their initiation, Michael received the name Dayananda, and Nancy received the name Nandarani. Soon Prabhupada performed their marriage. Nandarani. We knew it would be a very big wedding. In Haight Ashbury, whenever Swamiji would perform a wedding, hundreds of people would come and the temple would be filled. My parents were coming and Dayananda's parents were also coming. Swamiji said that it was proper that I cook. He said I should come to his apartment on the morning of the wedding and he would help me cook something for the wedding feast. So that morning, I put on my best jeans and my best sweatshirt and my boots and I went off to Swamiji's apartment. When I got upstairs, I walked in with my boots on. Swamiji was sitting there in his rocking chair. He smiled at me and said, "Oh, you have come to cook?" I said, "Yes." He sat there and looked at me, one of those long silent stares. He said, "First, take off the boots." After I took off my boots and my old leather jacket, Swamiji got up and went into the kitchen. He got a very large pot that had been burned so thick on the bottom that practically there was no metal visible. He handed it to me and said, "We want to boil milk in this pot. It has to be washed." There wasn't a sink in Swamiji's kitchen, only a teeny round basin. So I went into the bathroom, put the pot in the bathtub, and rinsed it out. I assumed Swamiji didn't want the black off the bottom because it was burned on. So I brought it back to him and he said, "Oh, that is very clean, but just take off this little black at the bottom, on the bottom here." I said, "Okay," and got a knife and crawled into the bathtub and started scrubbing the black off. I worked and worked and worked, and I scrubbed and scrubbed. I had cleanser up to my elbows, and I made a mess everywhere. I had gotten about half the black off. The rest seemed to be more or less an integral part of the bottom. So I took the pot back to Swamiji and said, "This is the best I can do. All of this is burned on." He said, "Yes, yes, you've done a wonderful job. Now just take off this black that's left." So I went back into the bathtub and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. It was almost midday when I came out of the bathtub with all the black scrubbed out the bottom of that pot. He was so happy when I brought the pot in. It was sparkling. A big smile came on his face and he said, "Oh, this is perfect." I was exhausted. Then Swamiji welcomed me into his kitchen and taught me how to make rasgullas. We boiled the milk, curdled it, and then I sat down and began rolling the curd into balls on a tray. As I rolled the balls, I would put them in a little row along the tray, and every single ball had to be exactly the same size. Swamiji would take his thumb and first and second fingers and shoot the balls out of the row when they were in the right size, and I would have to remake them until they were the right size. This went on until I had a full tray of balls, all the same size. This is going on. So I will stop here as she's preparing rasgullas, and we can relish some rasgullas after offering them to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. Yes. So Prabhupada is on a mission now. It's not just like I said, he can deliver a whole city at a time, or the whole world at a time. So he's after initiating what almost 19 disciples in New York. Now he's at the speed that matters. He's initiating left and right and center every day. Okay, let me know if this is audible now. Am I audible now? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was saying Prabhupada is initiating left, right, and center. Good to see Malati Mataji and Shyamasundar Prabhu initiated. Yeah, he can, like he was saying, Sudarshan Master has to take the karma of all the disciples, and he was again being so merciful and compassionate towards all the suffering souls. He didn't care about himself, just like Prahlad Maharaj, right? And Parikshit Maharaj and all these stalwart devotees, they never worried about themselves. They wanted everybody else to be delivered. So similarly, Prabhupada, he knows that it's so surprising. People who have just joined, not even come for 2 weeks, and he's ready to initiate them and marry them. So how much mercy and compassion he has in his heart, that he doesn't care if he has to suffer, take their sins, but he wants to he wants to bring them back to Krishna. So, but again, like I said, we cannot imitate what Srila Prabhupada did. He was a Jagat Guru, but all of us should follow in the instructions in his footsteps in terms of how much struggle he went through. Like we have been reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit now for the whole year since the first week of January, and we saw the struggle that he went through in his early childhood, in his youth, and after he met his Guru Maharaj and following his instructions for 40 plus years, right? So that was all life in training. So we should take inspiration from that life of his, how he spent those 4 decades in kind of setting the foundation for himself, right? So, and then of course how he struggled in Vrindavan, in Delhi, right? So all those struggles we should remember. That should be our aim. Like we should remember those struggles that he went through, even though he was a pure devotee of the Lord, but he taught us by his example. So now that he's starting to become successful, and generally when people are successful, everybody gets attracted to them and we follow them for their success. But we should never forget the challenges and the adversities that he went through and how he persisted through them, right? That is the main learning that we should take and imbibe in our lives. And we should spend our day just like we do every day. We come here, we chant, we come to the center on Saturdays, we do kirtan, we meet with devotees, we help in seva, right? So that should be the mood. And with that mood, if we continue and persist, then yes, Srila Prabhupada himself will come and he will deliver us like he is doing right now for all these wonderful devotees. Hare Krishna. Anybody else would like to share anything from today's reading?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone. There was this line in today's reading: when the disciples are ready, Guru will appear, or Guru would be visible. And we saw after that, Prabhupada initiated so many disciples. San Francisco was so ready for Srila Prabhupada at that time. That so many wonderful senior devotees we have today in our movement are all coming from San Francisco. And then also there was from Boni's father when he said that whatever she likes, then why do you have trouble if she's liking her name to be changed? So I was thinking on that part. We hear a lot of time, whomever we love selflessly, it is we should like what they like and not impose our likings on them. So that was another beautiful reflection I thought of sharing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes, very nice. Thank you. Yeah, like we were reading the prayers also, right? In our prayer, the last verse that we read, when we pray to the Lord, that praise uplift me, right? And when we are sincere and we are ready, then Krishna will send his empowered devotees. So yes, like you rightly said, Srila Prabhupada came because they were all ready. They were searching for something higher. They were fed up with all their experiments with drugs and all the illicit relationships that they had, and yeah, they're genuinely looking for something brighter, something bigger. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada came at the right time. Like we were saying, even now it is again coincidence, like there is so much of unrest going on in California, and Prabhupada, what we are reading, Prabhupada has come to California, at least figuratively, right? And spirit, he's there. So yeah, and even in the New York, when the devotees were remembering, like when Prabhupada came, the Prabhupada Murti was installed now in 26 2nd Avenue again in New York. They were remembering all those early days and these paintings that Prabhupada asked these disciples to paint. Actually, Radhanath Maharaj has inspired that whole 26 2nd Avenue Matchless Gifts to be completely renovated, and they've used most of those paintings from that time, curtains and many things, So actually, there was one painting I was seeing behind Srila Prabhupada. Maybe it was the painting that one of these disciples may have painted of Radha and Krishna with the cow. And yeah, so it's wonderful that Srila Prabhupada blessed all of them in the 1960s, and they all, like you're saying, they have, some of them at that point in time were very serious. Some of them had just joined, so they had not really understood the mood and seriousness of what they were getting into. But after 5-6 decades, so many of his wonderful disciples who were there in 1960s are still there in the moment. Like Prabhupada used to say, and some of them may have fallen down also. But again, like it is You can also see that as a Leela of the Lord, right? Sometimes we see in the Leelas and pastimes of the Lord, we should never think that like Mother Kai, for example, was bad. Like I think Nandakumar Prabhu was saying the other day in the center, she is a very exalted devotee. Similarly, all these other devotees, all the other demons that we see here, Hiranyakashipu, and all the demons are also devotees of the Lord, but they are just playing that character in the Leela of the Lord. So similarly, externally, we may see that some devotees may have fallen down, but we should never think that we should still glorify them for what they have contributed for whatever 40 years, 50 years, right? And that then somebody may fall down, but our mood should never be to admonish them or to think ill of them because they have served Srila Prabhupada. And it may just be a pastime of the Lord. They are teaching us through their examples that we should not follow that path of falling down, right? So we should continue to follow the rules and regulations, principle that Srila Prabhupada has given us. But by their examples, maybe they are teaching us. Krishna, again, only uses his pure devotees in his leelas, in his service. So they may be just teaching us by their examples of what not to do and follow Prabhupada in what to do, right? So like Prabhupada used to say, we should not be surprised by how many go away, but we should be surprised by how many stay. So many of these disciples, majority of them, stayed and have performed glorious service to Srila Prabhupada. So we should be grateful to them and grateful to everybody who came, who may not be there today, but who served Srila Prabhupada sincerely and who may be just teaching us through their lives of what not to do. Hare Krishna. Okay. Anything else? Final thoughts before we conclude? Kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrind ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Have a great day, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.